I have been, used to be terrible at interviews until my last ones. And I will share some embarrassing stuff. I interviewed for Yale University, was a total awkward kid at age 18, did not get into Yale. Then I interviewed for Michigan. Like there's two people left. And I drove all the way to Michigan to try to get into their pre-med program. Didn't get that either because they asked me stuff and I was really honest. And they said, what's your top choice? And I didn't say Michigan. Good one, Jeannie. And then I interviewed for a lot of jobs when I had a 4-year maternity leave, a family leave. My confidence went down even more. And so you can imagine I sent out 50 resumes. I looked good on paper, so I got a lot of interviews. But once I got there, I felt so much imposter syndrome. Again, this personality that you see now, because I actually teach public speaking, ha ha ha. I know I taught public speaking as a 22-year-old, but when it became personal, when I had to talk about me, anything I had left my brain because all I could think about was I'm not qualified. I'm not good enough. How many of you understand what I'm talking about? Put a yes in the chat. Right. And so it doesn't matter how much you've achieved, what college you went to, what degrees you have. If you haven't practiced marketing yourself, it's very difficult. I was fired once and I needed to look for a job. Another time I was unemployed for about 6 months. And those 2 times, to be quite honest, were more painful and brought up more insecurities than going through cancer and going through a divorce. I know that looking for a job is much, much harder than it should be. You might have heard this before. Most men will apply for a job in which they are just 20% qualified. Most women, 80. But in corporate America, this works against you because we come with a lot of self-doubt. And again, it's not your fault that it is this way. I could go into great detail, but suffice to say, a lot of the ways that we grew up make us, have to be 120% sure before we go for something. You've seen people promoted who do not have the knowledge, the experience, the ability that you do, but somehow they're the ones succeeding. So we all know this. I hope by the time most of you are mid-career, this is not your first gig. It's hard to put on a resume and not want to put every little single thing you've done. And so what's dragging you down is not understanding what a resume is. I'm going to give you 3 shifts today that are going to quickly help you to reframe what it takes to go look for the job. Okay, so first of all, we're going to deal with what a resume is. Number 2, what is an interview? And then 3, how do I get my confidence up? Okay, those 3 in a row. If you need to leave early, that's okay. This is recorded. I'll send it to you, but participate when I'm asking you these. Number 1 is, what is a resume? How many of you have worked for more than 10 years? And this is the problem, is the longer you've worked, the more bullet points you've got. A resume is not supposed to be a comprehensive, chronological guide of every good, awesome thing you've done. That is going to be too long, maybe 25 pages, and no one's going to read that and be able to process all that because it's too much info. Here is the new analogy I want you to think of. What you need to think about is when you watch a commercial, let's say for a car, what if it just listed everything about that car, air conditioning, 14 speakers? Would that make you want to buy the car? Exactly. And that's what we're doing in our resumes. We're listing every little single thing. The resume is just like a trailer. It's a little thing that makes you go, ooh, this person looks like they are going to be interesting. That's all it is. And the only goal of the resume is to get you in the door for that first interview. Does that help you feel a little bit more relieved that it's not about making sure they know you have all the qualifications? It's just enough so that they get a sense this person's good enough, right? And so think about a movie trailer. The trailer gives you the most exciting parts, and it says, look at what we have to offer. When you watch the movie, boy, are you going to have a great experience. And so you need to know for yourself, what makes me a great trailer? I know many of us worry about the gaps, right? I'm not technical enough, or, oh, I'm missing this and I should get a certification. Many of us, when we start to look for a job, our first thought is, I need to get more courses. I need to get an MBA. That is the worst thing you can do. In school, many of us learn you have to get A's in everything. Corporate America is totally different. You get to specialize and you get to know what is it that you bring to every company. For instance, do you know why people hire you and why they love you? This is something every individual professional should know. Why do you keep getting the results you do? And you do. Everyone here is an achiever and you've done great work. Why does your team, your boss, people you manage, why do they love you so much? Don't feel bad about bragging. Type it in the chat. Do you know that about yourself? Are you a great relational person? Do you know how to problem solve? Is it your technical ability is really out there? Is it that you know how to have vision to see something in the future and you stop it and you do it over and over again? Yeah, execution, good. And why are you good at execution? There's got to be a reason. And that, folks, is what you want to put out there. I'm known to be extremely blank, blank, and therefore I get things done. This is what I'm known for. Another way to think about it is, let's say your VP or somebody on your team is flying in for the week and they come by your desk or your cubicle or your Zoom meeting and they go, hey, I heard that you're starting this new project. How is it going? Do you know what to say? This actually happened to me about 20 years ago, and I was so flabbergasted. I was like, yeah, we're doing great. And there's that lost opportunity, right? So everybody here, I want you to think right now, what makes you the best employee where you are right now? What is, in 3 sentences, what makes you so darn good? And the reason we focus on this is, many of us, again, when we're applying for a job, when we're looking at job descriptions, we're not going, yes, yes, I rock here. We're going, oh God, I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that. And so we're coming with a scarcity mentality. We're coming with a mentality where someone's going to expose my gaps and I'm not going to be hired. Imagine if commercials did that, right? If an insurance company goes, we're not as good as this company here, and we don't have this feature or that feature, you would never advertise that. And so this is something you don't want to think about or talk about in your resume or in your interview. Every company, every brand only knows what they do best, and they have a certain flavor and they present it in a way that's very appealing. And that's what you're going to do. So my first shift is, stop worrying about your gaps. In this day of information and Google, if you have an information gap or a knowledge gap, you can fill that. But there is probably something you're very good at that classes can't teach. There is something you are known for in your years of working that is good. So very good. I see what people are writing. Excellent. And so in your resume, what you want to do is highlight that. Your objective is going to be explaining why this feature about you, this amazing characteristic about you, makes you great. And then in all your experiences, you want to highlight that and go into more detail, right? If you just put a list of 30 things you've done at every job, I guarantee you they're going to be confused, and it's going to be worse than if you focused and were intentional. So that should give you a better feeling and a hope of, oh, I got this. I don't have to go list everything and figure out what to do. And so that is a talent and a skill that you're going to start learning. Number 1, okay? Number 2 is this. At the actual interview, many of us feel like, I haven't talked in forever. And I have this problem too, where I can speak to people who are my junior. Speaking to my children is no problem. But if someone is at a level where I feel like, oh, they have more education, they're the hiring manager, they've been at this company for a long time, I tended to shrink. And I would start to feel this feeling of flutter, of nervousness. They know that I have less experience. Anything I say is going to sound junior and stupid. Why does that happen to us? I'll tell you why. We don't know ourselves very well. I want you to try this exercise. Write 50 reasons right now. Get a pen or your computer, whatever. Type in 50 reasons why you are amazing for this job. Or better yet, think about your dream job, the next level up. Don't go for a lateral move. Go for the next level or even 2 levels up and go, why am I ready for this? What makes me so good that I actually know how to do my boss's job and I could manage it pretty well? And the only way to do this is if you tell your criticizer, that voice that's in the subconscious, to go away. I'm going to share a story with you to give you some motivation before you write your list, but that's coming up in about 5 minutes. When I was interviewing, as I said, I was very bad at this, and partly it was myself, my own imposter syndrome. No matter what I did or how much I was able to accomplish, and people said thank you, I felt like I wasn't good enough. And the 4-year gap I had for being a mother, that was just my excuse. Oh, that's why I feel imposter syndrome. But the reality is, if I didn't have that excuse, I'd have some other excuse. I'm not very good at feeling confident for interviews, period. So whatever the reason is that you feel, whether it's I'm lacking this kind of training, or some of us, my English isn't my first language, I can't think in the language too fast, whatever that reason is, and I've heard this from my clients over and over again, that's probably not the reason. It's just that confidence wasn't something that was taught to you and nurtured in you, and that is not your fault. Because I come from an Asian background, that's the only one I know. I will tell you that having folks who control you, who tell you what to do next, who tell you what major you're allowed to do or not do, right? Who expect perfection, who expect really high standards. And then if there's any competition or comparison that you grew up with, like, hey, so-and-so is getting into this college, what about you? Or how come you're not doing an internship with HP this summer? Any kind of comparison, all of those things I just named, which are usually Asian parenting techniques, they don't do anything for your confidence. they tend to diminish your confidence. And so we graduate with a lot of good qualities. A lot of us are well-rounded, good at math, great at computers. We get things done. We are the one in the group that will, pull everyone together, get it done. But very few of us have ultimate confidence, right? None of us feels like we are capable and we trust ourselves. We know what we want and we know how to get it. Very few of us feel comfortable talking about ourselves and knowing how to promote ourselves. It's just not something that culture emphasizes. And so it's not your fault that your competence when you graduate from college, if you went to college, is here and your confidence is down here. Now watch this. Add in a hectic work schedule where it's really hard for you to get things done. Your confidence goes down another notch. Add in any experiences with a demanding boss that promised a promo and then didn't give it to you. Watch the confidence level go down even more. So as you're gaining experience and you're getting actually more and more competent, your experience of your career is actually going down because the confidence is the feeling level, right? And so many of us have this huge gap between your competence level, because I know you know more than when you graduated from college, but guess what? Your confidence went down, probably not higher, especially as you get into more senior roles. The people you work with, they're smarter, they have more experience. So you just feel like, I don't know if I fit in. Or maybe even the younger folks who get promoted, they feel like I'm the youngest person in the room. I'm brand new. How many of you feel that, right? I don't feel like I know what I'm doing anymore. I'm in over my head. So the problem is not your competence, it's your feeling and your experience of your day-to-day job. And this is pretty universal. I didn't know this. When I was growing up, I thought I just had a confidence problem. Maybe I'm an introvert. Maybe English was not my first language either. And I got bullied a lot for speaking broken English. I thought maybe that's the reason I don't feel comfortable expressing myself. The reality is my confidence was just low. And as I have spoken to hundreds and hundreds of companies and women and Asian American professionals and minority professionals, I've noticed that this is a universal human problem. Unless you're intentional, the way you grew up, if you were bullied, if the adults and the people that you grew up with were not 100% nurturing, if they didn't praise you as much as they told you how to do things or criticized you, a lot of this is not intentional. If they didn't pay attention much to you, all these are reasons why our confidence did not increase. So you can see that it's stacked against you. It's a miracle any one of us grows up with high confidence because there's so many ways to steal our confidence. When you get to a new company, you feel like I got to prove myself, and you feel like I'm learning too slow, right? I'm not productive. Enter a new baby. I hear this all the time. Oh my gosh, I used to be able to do 50 hours. Now it's barely 20. I feel like I'm going to be fired. And so we don't trust ourselves that we are doing a good job. We don't trust ourselves to take risks anymore. We don't know, and we're not proud of ourselves anymore. And so the fix for that is not to get more degrees and to get more certifications or MBAs, even though you think that's going to improve your confidence. I've talked to thousands of people who, once they get more degrees, guess what? They're now busier and they're stressed out and they're tired. They feel even worse. I know getting my degrees, it didn't make me feel more confident. So whatever your reason is, getting more certifications is not going to fix it. As you can probably imagine, what I'm going to say is we need to fix the confidence piece. And I have a trick for you right now. A couple ways to think about it in a practical shift, okay? How many of you ever grew up with a smoker, or maybe you smoke yourself, right? When you're with that smoker, obviously everything starts to smell, and then your clothes smell, right? Your hair smells. Or Mongolian barbecue. Have you been to one of those where you're cooking, or Korean hot pot, and then you go home and your clothes smell like that? I don't know for how many days. You try to air it out outside, it still stinks. The smell lingers. And what I'm saying is that when we have a traumatic experience where we feel stupid or embarrassed, or we get our confidence taken a hit. And guess what? When is that going to show up? When you're doing your resume and when you're going for interviews, because that is stressful for every human being, not just you. And so now that you know that this is universal and it's actually in your way, what can you do to get rid of that feeling? Because it's fake. That feeling has been there since 1985, right? If you're that old, or 1992. Or maybe one of you has an experience where there was a toxic boss that just yelled at you and made you feel so low. I had that. I was 22. I can still hear her voice. It's really PTSD, right? So all these analogies, I hope you can see the feeling of not being enough. A lot of times for people listening to this workshop right now, it's not because you're not good enough. It's just leftover smoke when there's no fire. And so knowing that should give you hopefully hope. And I train the clients I work with to remember, Oh, this is not 1975. This is when I was 3 and it's just leftover. And then you tell if you have a little I'm gonna use my doll here. Let's say this is the 7-year-old you that's gonna go, it's okay. I've got this. I'm gonna give you a box of cookies. You stay in the car, and I'm not 7 anymore. I'm 54. I'm 35, and I have so much experience. We're gonna rock this interview. You just say that, and it sounds so kindergarten. But you know who else uses this? Oprah Winfrey uses this. I actually met her once before an event, and she said when she videotaped her Soul Sunday awesome programming, she had to do this little check-in with herself and have the right personality show up on TV, because every one of us, okay, has a scared little kid that was bullied, hurt, yelled at, not respected, and that little kid wants to protect you every time there's stress. By stress, I mean interviews, presentation, high stakes meetings. And she's like, are you sure? Can we just sit down? Because she thinks it's going to happen again, or he thinks. So all you do is go, it's okay. We got this. And she goes, oh, okay. And when you comfort yourself, guess what? You, in the next 30 minutes, you can do this. I'm going to do a quick exercise with you and demonstrate right now how you can actually shift your confidence level with just this quick exercise without 4 years of therapy, without needing or any kind of long-term executive coaching. It's just a switch, because that leader part of you is still in you. I'm going to teach you 2 techniques. One of them is to write your 50 reasons why you are a badass at what you do. Your default, like me, is going to be, oh, I don't think I'm good enough. Your default is to feel a ton of fear. That's for everybody. It's not because you're broken. It's not because you're an introvert. It's not because you're terrible at communication. That's just everybody. And I keep saying this because I want you to understand that you're not alone. Every entrepreneur I know deals with imposter syndrome of varying levels. It's just human nature. And so the fact that you feel this way, you are just normal. And I'm going to teach you the strategy to get over it. And everybody can learn this, like riding a bike, right? Or learning to swim. It's not only special personalities or a certain race of people have it. It's not. It's just that our demographics, we didn't teach you how to do this. Go ahead and spend 5 minutes. And this exercise is not for you to write your full list, but I want you to notice what you're feeling, what you're experiencing as you try to write this list of 50. So grab a piece of paper, napkin, whatever you got. Try to write for 5 minutes. And I'm going to ask you, what's your experience? Was it hard? Was it easy? Did you feel frustrated? Did you get stuck after 2? And that's going to tell us a lot. All right. If you understand the directions, please type yes. If you're just out of college, you can write things like, I am extremely responsible. Easy to get along with. I know how to communicate well, everything. You could also write specifics, like in 2019, I helped my company to launch this new product, or I was part of the copywriting, whatever for this, or I innovated this. So anything that you can. And while you do this, tell your little criticizer to go away, because she's going to be like, stop bragging. Oh, you had team members for that. That's no big deal. No, tell her to go away and eat a box of cookies. All right, go ahead. I'll be back in 4 minutes. And then we'll get to shift 2 and 3. Okay, everybody. I would like to see in the chat, how was that experience for you? What we're getting at, was anything awkward, difficult, uncomfortable? Was it even hard to think of 50? Was it hard to get rolling? Any kind of feedback you have for me is great, so I can tailor this talk for you. Yes, thank you for the feedback. Oh, yes, yes, yes. See, and I get this, because this is not just your problem. Yes, we find like we're repeating ourselves. And you know what this says? In a way, this says your muscle, the ability for you to self-promote your marketing skills are low, which is not a bad thing. It just means you have so much room to grow. If we teach you this, you'll be an excellent marketer, right? Self-promotion is not an Asian norm. We know that, right? We know that it's considered bragging. I have a lot of difficulty even becoming a coach, because I'm like, I don't want a website. I don't want to tell friends. They're going to think, who the hell do you think you are? Right? So this is very ingrained in many of us. And again, it's not our fault, but if we want to feel more comfortable in our own skin, we need to give ourselves permission. permission to keep writing that list of 50. Try to think of a few more. Think of it from other people's perspectives. What would your teammates say about you? Is that easier? What would HR say about you if they sat with you in your office or in your cubicle all the time and watched you work? What would they say about you? Can you add four more that way? What would your previous bosses say about you? That usually is easier. And that actually is one of my tricks. Go ahead and write a few more if you can with that perspective and tell me how that goes. We'll do 2 minutes of that. Think about performance reviews, what other people have said about you, and write it from that perspective. You know, Kim is a great this. She's always blank, blank, blank. All right, come back to me. And if you have any further insights about how that went, was that a little bit easier for you? Go ahead and type any feedback you have for me. Did that open up a new portal where you realized, wow, she has a lot of other talents? Yes, good job, good job. When I train people to go to interviews, I say, pretend you are your own HR manager talking about you or your own boss. And everything you're saying is true, but we're just so not used to doing it in our own voice. We just shift. So that's the first way I teach someone to get out of your own head, basically to help this little, the internal criticizer to just lie down. It's okay. This next shift is going to be awesome too. So now from this place of confidence where you're feeling a little bit better, look at that list. If I were a hiring manager or I was a recruiter and I looked at this person's characteristics and all the awesome things they've done, do not think about your gaps. What kind of role would this person be amazing at? And this is how you're going to get clarity for what you deserve. Many of us, our job is so stressful. We just pick whatever the next job is, like anybody, just give me something different. And so guess what? It's always a little bit better, but I call that replacing one kidnapper to only get kidnapped by another job. So it's what I mean is it's still not what you love, but it's a little bit better than the last one. And then 6 months later, guess what? Oh no, the same thing's happening again. And so what I'm teaching you here is don't settle. Don't go for the lateral if you know you are completely capable of the next level up. Do not settle for any job, even if the economy is bad, because that's how we get stuck over and over and the cycle happens again, right? So just for a moment, I'm not going to force you to take action, so don't feel guilty. What kind of a title, a job role would the person whose qualifications you're looking at in front of you be really good for? And be totally honest, right? And you want to promote them. So that should help you get some insights into what you're capable of and what your value is. And you can either send to me what title would that be for you? What is that next role? And again, tell your criticizer, go away. Another way to do it is if I weren't afraid, or if I knew I had 4 years left to make a big dent in corporate America and do something awesome, what title would that be? Would it be the VP of marketing, or I'd be the CEO of something? I'd be a senior manager and do this. Write it down for yourself at least, even if you don't share. And then here's the question. Sometimes we look at our career path up to now and we didn't really choose it. Many of us fell into finance. I was supposed to be pre-med. I have a biology degree, right? And so maybe what we've done so far is not in alignment. And that makes it also very hard to get your next job because you're like, I don't really want to continue in this industry. This is not something that makes me light up, that makes me feel motivated. I actually have a side hustle idea, honestly, that I would love to do. And if I had 4 years left, not to be morbid, if I had 4 years left and I wasn't afraid of fear of failure or fear of success, this is what I would end up doing. Can we have some people put that in chat? What might that be? Or I'll share with you. My clients have said I would do a fishing farm with my dad in Brazil. I actually would start my fashion design business. I actually would do this as a side hustle and be a coach, right? Sometimes it's hard to get to the next level because we don't really feel good about it. We don't want to. And so what I'm teaching you right now is go, what do you want? Not what is good for your family, what's good for the company, what's socially acceptable, what's the responsible thing to do. And many of us, we justify the next rule by it pays the bills. But guess what? I know because I've lived long enough, it pays the bills doesn't make you motivated to get up on Monday. right? So that should give you more clarity on what you are allowed to do and the possibilities. I'll tell you this, many of my clients, when they come to me, they just don't want the stress, right? They don't want the hours they work. They're so burnt out and tired. And what they end up realizing is there is something else. There are other options, other possibilities that they were afraid to look at before. But as we train them to become more and more confident, it becomes easier and easier to imagine that that is possible. If that is you, I would love to talk to you and we can talk more about how to work together and how to get that part of you ignited and going because it's so worth it. It's so worth it, right? And then lastly, I want to share with you one shift in how to interview well. It is scary for most people. But this is the thing, unless you don't talk, you already have the ability to communicate in a way that is captivating, that is attractive, that makes you really fun to be with. So usually when we start interviewing, we get into this corporate jargon and we start using words that people outside of the industry would not understand. So shift number one is you want to come in speaking using words that a sixth grader can understand because in your resume, the technical stuff is already there, right? And so what you want to do is speak as if you're talking to your friend at happy hour about what you do well. For instance, the question people always get asked is, tell me about yourself. And you're like, oh, what am I going to do, right? Here's what you do. Remember earlier, I asked you, what is the one thing that you're so good at, right? Use that as a starting point. You go, well, in all the last jobs I've had and in my personal life, I am known as the organizer. I will see things and be a visionary and help folks to imagine what things could be. And then I help to also organize the team so that everyone clearly fits into a lane and we work together as a cooperative team and we're able to move the needle and stand out as a company and not just do what every other company does. That is what I've been able to see. Doesn't that sound exciting when I say that? I just pull that out of a hat. And each of you needs to have that 3-sentence personal understanding of your story, your branding. And then when they hear that, I'm like, oh, this person is so interesting. And so when you talk to your friends, you have a casual, easy going, confident style about you that you are allowed to bring to interviews. Most of us, if we come from a Eastern, Chinese, Korean, Japanese culture, sometimes that's more formal, right? You don't want to come across formal and stiff as if I'm reading some kind of a resume. You get to be yourself. If you're spunky, the more personality you show, the more you're going to stand out. So again, the game is to show personality, to be a human, not to be the one with the most degrees or the most experience or no knowledge gaps. That's not what they hire you for. Here's the final shift I want to share with you is a lot of people get to the interview, they go, oh no, now I got to prove myself. Right. And then they get hired and they go, oh no, I got to prove myself to say that I was the right hire. And then a year later, oh, I got to prove myself to make sure that they can get me my bonus and the promotion. And the proving yourself filter just follows you everywhere you go. And then once you get promoted, oh, now I got to prove myself again because the stakes are higher and more people know who I am and the executives are watching me. And so the cycle never ends. So I want you to drop that right now. Look at your life now compared to where your parents were. And I'm guessing for most of you, you are way ahead in terms of financial earnings. You're way ahead in terms of ability, education, your status in life, the things you're able to do and buy. You're way past what your parents, and did you ever celebrate? Did you ever say, I've made it? I am awesome. I'm done proving myself. I am successful already. I remember thinking this, when am I going to be successful? It feels like the bar just keeps getting raised and I'm always proving myself for the next level. And that is exhausting. And again, that is smoke I told you about, that need to constantly work hard and achieve. Let it go. Achieving more and more is not success. Let me say that again. Achieving more and more is not success. And that's the way you also approach your resume, all your achievements. That is not success for a resume. And again, when you interview, saying all your achievements, that is not success. The interview is a connection, making people like you, think that you're capable and you're wonderful and you're going to bring a lot to the company. The resume, the success is, ooh, this is interesting. I want to bring them into the meeting. And then for you to be a success, you don't have to keep proving yourself. Let me tell you when you've won, okay? You've won because you already know you're able to apply to this job and you're a badass. Because I asked you, what are the 50 reasons that you're able to get this job? Even before they interview you, you know you are qualified for this job, right? And even if they say no or your resume doesn't get looked at, do not consider that as rejection. This is one of the biggest ways you can eliminate stress. We are so used to wanting approvals and likes on Instagram and TikTok. For a while after my divorce, I was dating and I'm like, everybody, please swipe right. That's the feeling of success, right? For the average Asian, we want everyone to like us, everyone to go, yes. And we think that's how we get measured. The reality is, as you move up in your career, there's more people fighting for that spot. And just because you didn't get picked does not mean your value is diminished, does not mean you suck, does not mean I'm not good enough. But we, as humans, everybody does this where we attribute meaning to it. And that's how our self-esteem gets lower and lower. And you interview for one job and then you're like, okay, I'm going to rest for 3 months because I feel so bad. That's a lie, right? That's the smoke. So realize that your worth, who you are, is what you believe, not what other people who've never met you, who just looked at a piece of paper, they don't get to judge you. They don't even know who you are, never worked with you. Do not give them so much power. Do not give the people interviewing you power. Instead, take your own power. And this is how I made the switch. I'm going to tell you my story now. When I finished chemotherapy treatments, I didn't finish my MBA. I was too sick and never got that done. I didn't get more credentials. And the reality is now I had another year of no work and the gap got bigger. But one day, a supply chain recruiter came over and said to me, hey, we want you to apply for this supply chain senior manager job. Now, old Jeannie, the scared one, would have said, you have a biology degree. What the, does he think he's doing? The new Jeannie said, if the recruiter thinks I'm capable, maybe they're not stupid. And so I drove to that interview. I had little Jeannie sit in the car with a box of cookies so she didn't have to panic and worry. And I aced the interviews. I did 3 of them. The last one was with the CPO himself, scary man, wrote lots of books, famous man. And he was kind of dismissive. He was looking at his cell phone when I was presenting. And I said, nothing to do with me. I just said, not my issue. And I made jokes. I was funny. And he liked me and I got hired. And then I even negotiated my salary. So in that 1 year period, from my old job to my new job, I jumped 2 levels and my salary doubled. And you know what? It wasn't because my resume was better. It wasn't because I got more degrees. It wasn't that I went to therapy and got stuff fixed. I just realized, hey, the criticizer's wrong. She is living in 1985 when I was a Chinese kid with bangs down to here, getting bullied and feeling really inferior. And that's not who I am anymore. And she has PTSD. And realizing that was so freeing. And so again, even Oprah has to do this. And so if you know this trick, I teach my clients to practice right before the interview, right before the big meeting, right before the high stakes presentation. You do this little connection. Oh yeah, it's not 1985. I don't suck. No one's going to bully me. I actually know more than anybody else in the audience, right? I know more about me than anybody else. Therefore, the interview should be easy because I know myself best. If you can train to do this, and by this, you will have no problem with the interview. And I know this because my last 5 interviews I did before I transitioned to being an entrepreneur, I got offers on all 5. And I realized I know what I'm doing. I'm speaking in a way that's authentic to me. I'm no longer worried about my gaps. And I come here in control. So get this, by the time you get that first interview, you've already succeeded. Because they're looking at your technical stuff, and recruiters and hiring managers, they're very careful. They won't bring anybody in who is gonna might be a dud because they're gonna get in trouble. So by the time you get that first interview, I want you to think to yourself, hey, I'm in, I've succeeded. And what happens now is in my control. That will help you to not worry about what this hiring manager thinks, what facial expressions that guy has, the senior scientist who's a little bit aloof. That's not going to bother you because you know your value. You know how awesome you are. And if they got personality issues or social problems, that's them. It has nothing to do with you. And when you go there like that, you have a confidence that wasn't there before because you know who you are. And then guess what? The table shifts because now you're looking at them. And you're looking at them going, is this company going to value me? Are they going to respect me? Are they going to know how to use my talents and build me up? You're asking them questions. And when you shift the tables, they respect you because they realize, ooh, this person has lots of choices. We want this person. But if you come across being a little bit shy and quiet, you're going to give them all the control because they'll see and feel a lack of confidence in you. So that is under your control. You can do the exercises and turn on your confidence switch, or you can have your little scared me show up, and that again is all in your control. So here's what happens when you come in knowing who you are. I did this on my last interviews and they loved it. It's kind of crazy. I don't hear people teaching this, but it works. So you know the last part where they go, do you have any questions for me? By the end, I'd go, I would ace this job. I could bring so much to you. The only environment that I don't work well in is when people are backstabbing, they're not collaborative, and they make things difficult for others. Do you have any assholes working on this team? I talk like that, and they would laugh and they go, oh my goodness. Right. That is signaling your authority. If you don't like the word asshole, use something else. But that tells them, wow, this is someone that I need to respect because you're saying this is what I look for. If you have no questions or you say something like, does it matter that I don't have 5 years experience? You're shooting yourself in the foot, right? Never apologize for anything that you didn't do wrong. All right. Never apologize. So this is the 3 shifts, folks. Number 1, realize that your resume is not meant to be a comprehensive, list of all the features. No commercial ever does that. You're making a connection. It's a trailer to make them love you and go, okay, let's bring her in for the interview. Number 2, once you get the interview, 80% is already in your hands. And don't worry about what they think about you. Think about how am I going to present myself in a way that makes me shine. They would be lucky to have me in this job. Any nervousness, fear, imposter syndrome is usually left over from childhood, from your worst case scenarios, because that's what our brain does. It's like AI gone wrong, right? Trying to protect you from being embarrassed, but it doesn't know that you grew up and that you have a ton of experience and talent and you're good at your job. She thinks you're going to get yelled at by your mom. And like, well, my mom's not at this interview. So you just go, it's okay. I'm going to do great, right? So help yourself shift and remember that you are not that same scared person. Because most of us, that fear came in as a young child, and that's when we lost our confidence. But, reclaim it, turn on the confidence switch. And then finally, when you're in the interview, be at a position where you're choosing, you're selective. There's almost nowhere else in the world where we just put ourselves out like, please accept me, please take me. Think of it as shopping. If I'm shopping at Target, I'm going to find what I want and I'm going to comparison shop and get what I want. Come with that attitude because you will come across being knowledgeable, being completely desirable for this job. But if we come with any sort of apology or fear or anxiety, that becomes a cloud. And that's what people face first. Watch this. Hi. Yep. I'm a good team player. And most people see how the whole demeanor is different than what this is right now. If I started saying, hey guys, we're going to talk about interviews today. And I have been a coach for 8 years. Do you see how that you're like, oh my God. So how you show up in the interview is everything. And so this is what you want to learn. It's like a game. It's not going to be your resume and the gaps you think are there. That never matters. And so if this has intrigued you, send me a private message if you want, or tell me something in the chat here that worked for you. What was your biggest insight you got today? I've so enjoyed sharing this with you. I just love helping people to get unstuck because you're so talented and it's unfair that a lot of these are cultural trainings that are clashing with American corporate culture. So have a great night. I would love feedback and see you soon. Take care.